Hey there, fearless followers. It's Josh, and I'm here with your word of the day. And here we are, Monday morning, looking at the book of Ruth, looking at chapter 4, where Boaz has immediately gone into town. He wastes no time. He goes to find the kinsman redeemer, goes to the city gates, and as he arrives at the gates, the other redeemer walks by. This other man, this younger man in town walks by. And then Boaz gets him, and he gets 10 elders, and they sit down, and Boaz is setting it up to have this pretty serious discussion about redeeming Naomi and Ruth. And the whole thing takes place at the city gates. The city gates that's where commerce happened. That's where business happened. That's where the judges of the city would sit and rule on cases and hear problems and concerns. It was also the place in Israel where God's people made the mission of God happen. It was where they greeted in those who were on the outside, and that's going to play a pretty significant factor in this conversation, because remember, Ruth is from Moab, okay? She is an enemy of Israel. She's a Gentile. And Boaz knows this, and everybody else knows this. And so that's going to play a part here. And when we're going to see really the difference between two hearts in this story early on, we'll see the heart of Boaz for Ruth, regardless of her background. And we'll see the heart of this other redeemer and how he feels about Ruth being from Moab. And I don't want to give it all away, but there's going to be a stark difference between the two. And there's a few things that stand out to me as we read this first passage in Ruth 4. The first is that Boaz is a man of his word. He says it, he does it. He makes a promise, he follows through. That's a pretty remarkable characteristic in and of it. And we could talk a lot about that. But the other component is Boaz is super wise. And not only does he make good on this, but he has a way of navigating this conversation to be very specific about what is entailed in redeeming the family and what is ultimately going to be best for Naomi and Ruth. And so today, as I read it, I have a personal reminder to make good on the promises that I make, to keep the promises that I make, and follow through, and don't dilly-dally about it. That's something I'm going to work on, along with trusting God today, because Christy's starting school, and so that's nuts. But that's my takeaway for that. And then also, just to continue reading this story and seeing what happens. I'm excited. It's going to be I've read it before. You're going to love the ending if you haven't read it. But this is going to be a cool couple of days as we really dive in to see the glimmer of hope that God has for Ruth, Naomi, Boaz, Israel, and even the world. But we'll get to that. Peace.